In your relationship, if you're feeling there is something missing, it almost kind of feels a little bit like a neglect. And also, if you are trying so hard and you're trying to show love the best way that you know how, but it feels like it just isn't working and you're frustrated, it's probably because you don't know their love language, and maybe you don't even know your love language.
If you don't learn your love language or your spouse's love language, it is a recipe for disaster for your relationship. Hi, my name is James Kraft. I'm a certified marriage and recovery coach.
And I'm Teri Kraft, and I am a professional counselor and a coach.
We're about to take the 5 love language assessment, right? Or test?
Quiz. I think they say 5 love language quiz.
We're about to take the 5 love language assessment quiz.
Wait, no, you don't have to say quiz.
Sorry, yes.
Yes.
We're about to take the 5 love language assessment quiz test.
And we are about to take the 5 love languages quiz.
Marriage Health with James and Teri Kraft.
Whether or not you are familiar with what love languages are, the bottom line is that if you don't know what yours or your partner's love languages are and you're missing each other, it's going to be really hard to give and receive love the way that feels authentic. It feels a lot like we are spinning our wheels, even if we're both really trying to show up. Not knowing your spouse's love language, and yours for that matter, is a recipe for disappointment in your marriage.
I know what mine are.
I think I do.
What do you think yours are?
I think I am a acts of service. And also I like some gifts.
All right.
Okay.
How long is
I'm
this
an
thing?
adult. No, these are kind of close. It's more meaningful to me when...
Teri.
Well, wait,
I can't read it.
We're on camera. This is boring for people.
You said fast forward all this.
Have you ever seen that thing when you kind of do different segments of somebody doing something and it's kind of fun? Could we hold our computers and maybe one shot I'm like this and and then you through time, and then James shifts and then I'm like this looking at the computer.
Yes, let's do that.
Okay.
You ready?
But don't do it with me saying it because I feel stupid. This is different than I thought.
So mine too.
Is it really?
Yes. I thought my number 1
Was physical touch.
was physical touch. That's not my number 1.
What is your number 1?
You're not going to believe this.
Words of affirmation.
No.
Quality time?
Yes.
Me too.
No way.
The first important misconception is that I am going to give the love language they need and it's going to be easy for me. The bottom line is that you're likely giving the love language that you actually need. So if acts of service is maybe my highest love language, then I'm often going to show up for my spouse in a way that looks a lot like acts of service because that feels comfortable for me. That feels like, this is love. I'm showing my spouse love by giving them of my time and being able to clean the whole house. Wow, I did all these errands for you and I organized all these things. Can you see how wonderful that is? And my spouse is like, that doesn't mean as much to me as just sitting down and watching a movie with a bowl of popcorn, us just hanging out together.
I thought it was always physical touch.
I always thought I was acts of service. Maybe that's just because as a mom, I've always just really appreciated help around the house. Is your head blown right now?
Kind of a little bit, yeah.
But it's kind of making sense, though.
It totally does. When we were in college, I remember living in Fresno. We'd always go for late night walks together at midnight and just go spend time together.
Yeah. Our girls always say, Mom, what do you want? What do you want to do? I'm like, I definitely want to go to just spend the day in Malibu or something like that. Yeah. Santa Barbara. It's just things like that to me. Yeah, I can totally see that now. These are the 5 love languages. The first one is acts of service, doing something for someone. That act of service, that demonstration that you're giving of your time and your effort is one way that some of us relate in a loving relationship.
Receiving gifts. Now, you don't need to go into debt. I'm going to encourage you, please don't go into debt getting gifts. This is not just going out and purchasing new dresses or clothing or shoes or even cars or this or jewelry. Sometimes gifts is a card, is a note. That's a gift to me, and it will help us just kind of remember, oh man, I got something really special here.
Quality time. I want to sit by the lake and just talk for hours. I want to binge watch Netflix together, be completely just in our own little world together. The best day for me would be, let's go to lunch, let's ride bikes, or let's go for a walk. I just want to spend time with you. I just want to spend that quality time.
Physical touch is like this for me. When Teri walks by me and she literally just takes her hand over my shoulders and she just gives me a touch like that, that sends like chills down my spine. I feel affirmed. I feel connected with. I feel like she is paying attention to me, connecting with who I am. It just has a connection point with me. And the last one is
words of affirmation. That like, well done. Oh my gosh, I just noticed that you did this today. Those intentional words of affirmation, words of encouragement. When you hear those words, when you get those affirmations, and it feels a lot like that's a demonstration of love, then you're connecting with words of affirmation.
What happens with love languages is that people use that against each other. Well, mine's just physical touch and yours is not. And they'll say, you know what, you just don't give me what I need. Your love language of physical touch is probably a lot lower than mine. We've had to be intentional about that.
Absolutely.
Now, a marriage that's not intentional, though, it could be really devastating. Like, you just don't love me enough. You don't show up for me enough. You don't provide for me enough. And that's why people will go out and have affairs, and they'll seek out other things because they want to have that physical touch, but they don't invest in the relationship. Right. Because we have to be very intentional about that to make that happen.
For sure. Well, and they eventually start to see that as points of, contempt or a neglect. 100%. It's easier for us now.
Yeah, totally.
Back in the day, before we built the resiliency in our marriage,
we took it personal. Like it's something against me. Yeah. That you aren't seeing me. Yeah. You don't see who I really am. You don't really care about my needs. Yeah. And that's not the truth. Yeah. When you and I started to live out a new, authentic expression to one another, we were curious what each other's love languages are. Exactly. That's why I love to do acts of service for you. I know that it's one of your top ones.
It has to be.
I love cleaning the house, and I love to do the laundry because I've learned how that is a blessing to you. That actually makes you feel good. Yeah. One thing you always do when you come home after, I'll even vacuum and mop, and you walk in, you're like, I smell so good in here.
It smells so fresh. Thank you.
And I just love hearing that. Yeah. That you feel good about that.
It does. I think it is an act of caring.
Yeah, it is.
To me, it's part of the trust. It builds trust with me.
100%. When someone is, number one, there is a physical touch on one person, and the other spouse, their physical touch is last, number 5. And they're just on two different planets. Yeah,
that's kind of us.
Exactly.
I'm much more avoidant in those areas. I just don't think about it.
You don't think about it. But then you started to realize how important it was to me. Not so that you cater to every one of my needs, but is to come and connect with me in that language of mine. But it has to be intentional. If you're not intentional about it, you won't do it. Right. You'll just keep on living in your own path and you'll forget your spouse.
So if I walk in the room and I'm not as demonstrative as you would want me to be, how do you deal with it differently now than you used to be?
Well, in 2 different ways. I wish I can say that I used to do this. I still catch myself doing it. Is that when you don't come and give me a hug, I will turn to sarcasm. Because when you eventually do give me a hug, I would say, oh my, this feels so good. And it was so embarrassing that I would do that. But I used to do that all the time.
I remember.
And it would make you feel foolish and make you feel less
it made me feel shame, like I wasn't doing it well enough instead of meeting me there.
Yeah, exactly. Now when you do that, I just stop and I just shut up. And I just experience the moment because that hug really means the world to me. And I love receiving hugs from you.
Yeah, for sure. What if I blow past you and don't give you a hug? Because acts of service and doing things is much more attuned to me. So I'm thinking, if I get all of this kitchen cleaned up or the countertops done, then everybody's going to come in and feel peace. And, so I blow past you.
Yeah.
And you're like, I just wanted a hug.
My number one is now, it's quality time.
Quality time? Yes! Me too!
So a lot of times we'll sit and watch a TV show together, and I love it. And I'll be popcorn ready to go. The remote controls are on, the TV's on and ready to go. And let's watch it. And you're doing the dishes right behind me, because you're doing extra service, and it just starts to drive me nuts. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to sit down and be together and just hang out and just go kind of brain dead for a while together.
So what do you do? Help our listeners.
Two different things.
Okay.
One, and I'm going to say, I wish I could just say one thing, because I wish I did it right all the time.
Well, you're human. We're giving some space for humanity.
Right. And there's times I get frustrated and I want to give up. And I just say, forget about it. I don't want to watch the movie anymore. And I want to just throw in the towel and say, I'm done.
Yeah.
The numbers are way low on that.
Yep,
because
I agree.
I realize there's no positive results in that. There's nothing good that comes out of that.
Yeah.
It just creates more separation between the two of us. So I've really had to work on that.
Yeah.
But the other result is this. Okay, you want to get that done, and I know you do, and I always will help in doing those things. But there's certain times you just keep on doing more things to prepare for the next day. Right? And I've learned to live with that in a way of, that's who Teri is.
Yeah.
I accept your personality, that I know that you love to prepare for your next day. And so that you can wake up in the morning not running 100 miles an hour.
Right.
That's all ready to go.
Yeah.
So I've learned how to do that. I've learned how to speak your language.
Yeah.
So I don't come down on you and say, how dare you? You don't love me.
Well, I've noticed you, like, let's say that in that scenario, I've noticed you get up from the couch and come and help me.
Yes.
Like, you'll just like, hey, can I just help you do the dishes?
It might be motivation of, let's get
it
this thing
done quicker.
going.
Yeah, exactly. So you'll get up and help me. Or you'll say, hey, so this is where communication comes in, which is so key to a healthy relationship, which we're learning. So you'll say, hey, I was hoping we could watch this movie together. It's been a long day. Do you mind finishing that afterward? Or do you need some help? Or so the communication comes out of maybe the initial frustration.
Yeah.
Whereas before it would be like you'd kind of simmer.
Yes.
And it would be more, you'd kind of more take it internally as a personal affront.
And I would kind of do little pot shots with you.
Yeah.
Little comments, and it was just devastating.
Yeah.
It was devastating.
Yeah. You said that I sometimes will blow past you, and that when it's like, you're like, hey, it's like that person standing for the hug and they're like, you're home.
Yeah.
And then I just like, blow past. A lot of times, literally, it's just, I'm not even thinking.
Yeah, no.
When you have been patient and kind with me instead of sarcastic about the fact that I sometimes are just like, I'm not even thinking about physical touch right now.
Yeah.
But you'll just gently, kind of pull me in or say, oh, let's, come here, give me a hug or something like that. I'm like, oh yes.
Yeah.
I love hugs. I love warm hugs.
And you do love
and
that.
I do, and we'll embrace, and it's like, oh, this feels so good. It's so good. But my initial thought process just doesn't go there.
Yeah.
So I have felt such grace and kindness when you have been able to be patient with me that way.
Yeah.
And because it's lower on my language list, you've been patient with me as I've gotten there. So I thank you for that. And I think that listeners need to hear this, where it's like, we're going to be different. Yeah. There's no way that all of them are going to line up perfectly. I mean, maybe, but there's a very small percentage.
Yeah. You don't normally hear a couple having the same one.
So there has to be some grace and some patience. And when we've been able to pull each other in or be kind and take that pause and communicate, the love that we share is deeper and wider.
Yeah.
And I know that when we had our interview with Jenna Mountain, great interview, if you want to listen to a great interview. And she was talking about how couples who've gone through things just, tend to have a deep and wide relationship because they've done the work.
Yeah.
Are you saying that couples that experience big problems and then work through those problems are happier from your point of view than couples who never experience problems to begin with?
Those couples who really go all chips in to fix it, their marriages are more glorious and beautiful and intimate and astonishing than any average couple with a really great marriage.
Yeah.
Because they get forced into work by the pain and the not giving up. It's because we don't choose hard work unless we're forced to.
That's right.
Right. I don't know a young married couple who opts into doing the level of work that my sexual pain and affair cases do.
It's true, because you've kind of gone into the gutter, and then you realize I don't want to do that again. So I'm much more patient, and I take things less personally, because I'm like, I just don't want to waste time anymore on that. I want to spend time with you. And, there's going to be times it's going to be the way I want it to, and other times we'll flex and we'll, do new and creative things that you like to do.
That's right.
If we understand that our spouse's love language is different, then the way that I show up for them, like I really want to show up for you. Like I want to do something genuinely loving and kind that you're going to receive as a love bid, then I'm probably going to want to know what feels natural for them as love. In my relationship, I often show up in acts of service because that's comfortable for me, but that's not as important to him. So for me, I've had to learn how to pause and slow it down and realize he came in the house, spent a long day. He's gonna just be so overjoyed if I just look him in the eyes and give him a big hug. Hey, how are you doing? Let's spend time tonight together. After we eat dinner, let's watch a movie together. We'll just snuggle on the couch and watch a movie. Big win, because he's gonna go, that feels so much like love to me.
Start with you. You need to understand what your own love language is, how people connect with you, how your spouse does. Once you do know that and you see it, it's good for you to communicate it. Because when you communicate it outwardly to your spouse, they're not trying to throw a dart in the dark. They're able to meet you there and connect with you there. What if you like gifts? You know what? It's great to know. Maybe flowers and things like that are important to you. Well, if they don't know, then it's hard to actually meet you there. It can cause frustration because it can kind of seem like they're kind of narcissistic. It's about them. It's not about you. It can make it look like they're selfish and they're looking for their own desires. So here's my encouragement to you on this. Communicate and communicate. If you don't like that and that's not your love language, you need to communicate. Hey, I really appreciate your thoughts and your efforts, but this is not my love language per se. Gifts, not really my love language, but quality time, oh man. If you can give me quality time, that is like high on my list. And to communicate that is so important.
Honestly, it really can transform your marriage if you learn how each of you give and receive love and your expectations around that. One thing I really want to clarify as well is that you can have a primary love language, but you can also have a secondary love language. Like myself, acts of service, that just means so much to me when somebody does caring things. But I also am so touched when somebody thinks through something and that little gift is brought to me. Some of my most precious gifts that people have given me have been things that they've made, homemade gifts, things that they put their heart and soul into, and all of a sudden I'm given this gift, this caring gift that touched my heart. So you could also have more than one expression. The best way to look at it is you have a primary and then you have like a secondary. So of these 5 languages, you're probably gonna have a primary and a secondary. Some of the assessments that you can take online, sometimes they'll even order them all from 1 all the way to 5. Yourself and your spouse, you can kind of share that back and forth. Maybe like, oh, I thought you were, or, I kind of think you are. You could kind of go back and forth, have a fun conversation with it. I use assessments all the time. They're super helpful. But I prefer a client, if I'm working with them, I prefer them to start with observation. Start observing yourself in your environment. Start taking an assessment, personal assessment of what you're expecting in your own life in terms of love and the expression of love, and then how you feel might be the most effective way or the most successful way that you have given it to your spouse. Then after you've done the observation for a bit, then take an assessment and see if that lines up with what you're observing in real time.
I know that many people are experiencing the lack of love in their life. My heart grieves when I hear that from people, because you were created for a purpose, and you were created for a purpose to be loved and for you to love. And some of you are listening and you have been lacking receiving that love, and you feel so alone. But today, I want to encourage you that you can be loved. First and foremost, if you've been following the show, you know that we believe that God loves us with everything He has. And first and foremost, that you can be loved by God. There is where it starts. But then it also then moves into other areas where you allow yourself to be loved by God. Maybe, just maybe, you'll allow yourself to be loved by you. And then others, your spouse, friends, and family members, because you're worthy of that love. If you and your spouse are just hitting a wall right now and you're just not connecting, you're kind of banging against this thing about how do we express our love to each other? How do I receive love from my spouse? And you just aren't making progress or headway there, I want to encourage you. Reach out. You'll find our website at the end of this video. Reach out to us. We want to come alongside of you and discover what are some of those blocks or those hurdles that are holding you back from experiencing that love for one another, or even starting with yourself and then with one another. But reach out to us, because we want to walk alongside of you and discover that together.
Marriage Health with James and Teri Kraft. If you feel like you need someone to come alongside you, a coach or a counselor, reach out to us. The link is in the description.